want to disabuse you of the thought of integration. You love white people more than you love yourself and your own brothers and sisters. White people deserve to die. That's right. And they know
if I walked into a Nation of Islam mosque, or I assume that they're called mosques.
Yes.
And I said, hey, guys, I want to join up. What would happen?
Caucasian people are not allowed into the temple or into the mosque. Started to see that buildings were being made, that the Nation of Islam were having secret meetings with Scientology that the public had no idea about.
I found a tool that I know can help us. And I thank God for Mr. L. Ron Hubbard. And I thank God for his research and teaching.
They now call him the Honorable LRH.
The world should be grateful that in our lifetime, along came a being known as Mr. L. Ron Hubbard. We say that when a man comes along like that, his name should be mentioned right along with the names of the saints. And we are thankful to Almighty God that a human being like Mr. Hubbard came this way.
You find pictures of children in the nation holding Dianetics books.
They started to really introduce something which was called the self-improvement study guides.
And they are the introductory courses that everybody takes in order to come into Scientology. And it is the slippery slope that results in you ultimately realizing that all answers to everything come from L. Ron Hubbard. They are such strange bedfellows because Scientology believes that all other faiths, all other religions are worthless. The only valuable religion on earth is Scientology. There's no Allah. There is no religious leader who has ever existed that was anything other than a thing designed to control people. That is the actual teaching of L. Ron Hubbard.
Right.
That they are things that were implanted in your mind. All religion is that, except Scientology.
Religion is always different than truth. It has to be, because the only way you can control a people is to lie to them.
And that's what we're finding out on our side. We're finding out from our community that this transitional doctrine was something easing us into something else. They now meet in the Scientology buildings. They now are being bestowed with the Scientology awards. And within the Nation of Islam, it's now a celebrated thing that the first female has gone clear recently. And then in 2015, the first male went clear. Now they do have Caucasians that do come into the mosque in order to teach Scientology. So that is an exception that they make, as well as they deal with, they say that Scientology gives them the clearance in order to have access.
Since its inception, Scientology has been traditionally white. Isaac Hayes, who was perhaps the only prominent black Scientology celebrity, went to David Miscavige, the leader of Scientology, and said, why are there no organizations being created in black communities? David Miscavige became convinced that the way to get into the black community was through the Nation of Islam.
There were people that were sponsoring Nation of Islam people. We didn't know who they were, but somebody was paying to make sure that they could enter these courses and to get deeper into this, and we couldn't figure it out.
I was approached by Scientology to bridge the gap between Scientology and the Black community. They were coming to people like me, and they were saying, hey, we want you guys to sponsor Nation of Islam members to come in and do these seminars. And I was like, I have never heard of this. They asked me to sponsor Tony Muhammad.
I have become a better Muslim as a result of my relationship to the Church of Scientology.
He was one of the key people that brought in this influx of Nation of Islam members.
What did he win recently?
The IAS Freedom Medal. Oh, they flew him first class over to England to get this, receive this award, and stayed in the finest hotels and wined and dined and all of that sort of stuff.
With the happiness ambassador and IAS Freedom Medal winner for 2017, Tony Muhammad.
A man that I would run into any battle with. That man is the chairman of the board, Mr. David Miscavige.
Tony Muhammad received the IAS Freedom Medal, and that is Scientology's highest honor. That happened in November 2017. Now, of course, if you think about it, the medal really should have gone to Louis Farrakhan. But Tony Muhammad seems to be Farrakhan's point man on Scientology. And I don't know that he's realized that he's actually fully positioned as the scapegoat if anything goes wrong with the Scientology-NOI relationship. Farrakhan has already gone in on Dianetics and has said from the stage that he approves of it and he wants his members doing it and that L. Ron Hubbard's a good guy. But I believe that Farrakhan could pull back from that. He'd have some difficulty extricating himself from the alliance, but he could do it. And he could blame Tony Muhammad, and he could just scapegoat the hell out of the guy if he wanted to and say that, you know, Muhammad had lied to him or something and blah, blah, blah. You know how cult leaders will do what they do. They're professionals at scapegoating other people for their mistakes. So he could pull that off. So I think that's why Farrakhan got the medal and not, or why Farrakhan didn't get the medal. And again, also, like I mentioned earlier, that Farrakhan and Miscavige had never been seen in public together, and Farrakhan does not connect himself with Scientology physically or in photographs. I was in Twin Cities in Minnesota at the Church of Scientology the day that the Nation of Islam members reported into the church in order to start doing Dianetics auditing and training. And that was quite an interesting day. And how it went down is we were told that that this seminar had happened in Illinois, that Farrakhan was fully on board with Dianetics, and that they were going to become part of, you know, what we were doing. However, this was soon tempered by this directive that came down that said they were only going to be doing Dianetics. They wanted to achieve the state of clear, and they were going to do it through Book 1 auditing. Dianetics is called Book 1 in Scientology because it was the first book. Right away, me knowing that, I thought there was something odd in the way that this was being presented, because we were being told that these guys were very, very interested in the Nation of Islam and going clear, and that they wanted to do Dianetics, and that was how they were going to get to clear. And I thought, really? Has nobody explained all this to them? Well, of course, the only person that could make an exception like that and make a promise like that to, say, Louis Farrakhan would be David Miscavige. So, you know, because anybody else, they would not have the power or authority to make a call like that. To say, oh yeah, guys, Nation, come on in. We're going to train you up on Dianetics, and you guys are going to go clear as the, you know, the summer's day, you know. But that's what they promised. So the instruction sheets that we received was about 9 or 10 printed pages. And it had a whole little indoctrination about what the Nation of Islam is. We were told that they were simply an organization of African Americans who were interested in self-improvement and empowerment and equal rights and And so we kind of thought, well, if they're for equal rights and everybody getting along together, then that makes sense. Except we were also told that there were very, very specific do's and don'ts in terms of how we were to act around Nation of Islam members. And these were really, really different and really, really interesting for Scientologists, because these included things like we could not swear around them at all, not even a little bit. No swear words. Now, if you know Scientology, you know that Scientologists talk like a bunch of drunken sailors. I mean, they are really liberal with their use of swear words. So we had to curb all that. And we had to, and I actually personally briefed all the staff of the Twin Cities Church of Scientology on all of this. We were directed in all big, bold capital letters, do not try to sell these people anything other than the Dianetics book and the Dianetics seminar or the Hubbard Dianetics Auditor course. And they were getting those services and books at a discount. There was a special package rate that they were getting that was a discounted rate, not an inflated rate. Okay? There was the Dianetics seminar is a 2-day review of certain parts of the book Dianetics, and then you twin up with a person and you do what's called co-auditing, cooperative auditing. And you just run Dianetics on each other. One person gets a session and then they turn around and audit the other person on it, and then they turn around and back and forth and back and forth. And this is what the nation was showing up to do. Now, after the seminar, you usually do the Hubbard Dianetics Auditor course. It's a thicker, bigger course. You read the entire book, Dianetics, from cover to cover, and you practice and drill doing auditing so that you can audit anybody with Dianetics, not just another person you're twinning up with. So ideally, they were going to do, if I remember right, they were going to do that HDA course. But we found, when they all came in to do their services that day, that many of them couldn't afford the HDA. These were some broke people. So that was another interesting thing about this, because Scientology positions itself as a religious philosophy that intends to make the able more able. And that's code for getting people in who have money and getting them to spend lots and lots of money in Scientology so as to make them more rich and more able, you see. Able being the key word there. So having people show up who couldn't even afford the packages, the cut rate packages we were offering them, was a little bit surprising. These were people who showed up well-dressed, bow ties, full skirts and dresses and stuff for the women, jackets and suits for the men. I mean, these were people who paid attention to their appearance. They were quiet, they were reserved, they were not very talkative. I later, of course, learned that this was because of arrogance, not because of shyness. I thought that they were kind of shy or reticent, but no, they were just, they weren't down with white people. So they all showed up. So we were not to reg them for anything more than what the services were that they were going to buy. And I actually had to stretch that a little bit in order to get them all onto service. We were told that the local mosque had about 30 members who were going to, 25 to 30 people who were going to show up. And this was going to be great. I was really looking forward to it because my job there at that time was getting people into the organization and on to services. So I thought this was going to be great, right? I was keeping track every week of how many people were doing services. And this was going to bump it up. I mean, an additional 30 people, we were wondering where we were going to find room for them. This was before the Twin Cities Church had opened up in its current new big, huge quarters. We were in a little tiny office space. And I thought, man, we're going to have them out in the hallways. This is going to be great. We're going to have so many people here. It's going to be awesome. Well, actually only about half that many showed up. I think in the end we had about 17 or 18 people show up. And this was fine, this was good, but they, like I said, they couldn't even all afford to pay for the services. So when they showed up, if they could at least buy the book, we would allow them to go into the course room and start, because I didn't want to be the guy who reported up lines, yeah, we had to kick 5 of them out because they couldn't afford their services. That would have been like a very, very bad thing as I saw it. So we let them all in the course room. We had it all set up that they were going to show up at a certain time. We were going to invoice them and get them in the classroom, and everything was going to be beautiful. Well, it didn't quite work out that beautifully. They were late. There was schedule problems. And we then found out over the next few days, that there were conflicts within the Nation of Islam about doing this Dianetics stuff at all. And that was the very first inkling I had that there was some kind of division going on within the Nation of Islam about this connection with Dianetics. I eventually came to learn that there were a whole group of people within the nation who did not trust L. Ron Hubbard, did not trust Scientology, did not want to have anything to do with this, and thought Farrakhan had gone off his rocker. And were totally separating from this and saying, no, this is wrong, we're not doing this, this is not according to our principles. They're not according to their principles. I mean, the dogma of the Nation of Islam says, thou shalt not, fornicate, communicate, coordinate, work with, cooperate with white people. And that's exactly what Farrakhan was doing. So there was some really, really heavy protesting going on within the nation over this. And of course, we didn't know anything about that. I just got little snippets of it in trying to call some of these nation members who had not shown up and ask them what's going on. I had a hard time reaching them, a very hard time reaching them. And I was very, very heavily discouraged from going down to the local mosque to find out what was going on. I was told, Dad, no, you can't do that. And I didn't realize at the time how racist the Nation of Islam was. So I didn't know I wouldn't be allowed in the mosque if I went down there and showed up, you see. This was talked about in Leah's show, right? White people cannot go into those mosques. And there's only been a couple Scientologists that they've made exceptions for. I wasn't going to be one of those Scientologists in Twin Cities. So, anyway, so I sort of detected that there was trouble in paradise with this, but I was so busy trying to just get people in that I just sort of parked that to the side and just kind of kept doing my work. And what happened internally within our group was at first we were saying, no Scientology for the nation. That's not what they're here for. That's not what we're about. That's not what we're trying to do. So do not try to sell them any Scientology. That was the orders we had. It was the polar opposite of every other order we had ever received ever about anything. So it was pretty weird. But we went, okay, I get it. That's what they're doing. So we're gonna follow that order. But as time marched on, some of these nation members started asking about Scientology. They started wondering what this Bridge to Total Freedom was all about. They started asking questions about the rest of Scientology. And we were starting to ask, what do we do with this? Because we were like, yeah, no, Scientology, just carry on with your Dianetics. It's all good, which was so weird. But we were doing that. And then we started asking up lines, what do we do with this? What if they're asking about it? And then we were told, well, look, if they're directly asking about it, sure, answer their questions, help them out. If they want to buy Scientology services, of course they can, but don't encourage it, don't push it on them, don't foist it off on them. So that was how we treated the Nation of Islam. So it was very, very interesting, opposite world for them.
We see Scientology being taught in Ghana, this falsehood. We see it being taught in Haiti, or they'll see the first calamity that comes up, and they use that as an opportunity to exploit. And we see Nation of Islam people on John Travolta's jet going to Haiti to make sure that they're teaching, the Haitian children these things and other communities these things.
That's why we say that we understand from the Scientology side of this what they see to gain.
Yes.
It's this legitimizing their ability to reach into these communities using the Nation of Islam.
What we're noticing with Scientology is that they're investing millions and millions of dollars into real estate into our community. They're investing in an Ideal Org in Atlanta. They have one in Harlem, New York. Inglewood, California. So these are not small investments. They're investing big money.
That money is being invested in real estate because of their tax-exempt status. Money that is invested in purchasing real estate, they get to keep. They could make inroads into Inglewood or Harlem or Detroit or anywhere else without spending $10 million on a building.
Right.
It's the same shtick. It's the same stuff that is being done, the pretense of we're here to help the community, but really what we're doing is we're just puffing up our real estate portfolio and pretending to our Scientologists that look how we're expanding. Miscavige and Scientology love this. They spend $20 million building an organization like the Ideal organization in Inglewood.
Were people in the Ideal org of Inglewood?
There's no people there. They have that site, and then they have another one. They have the community center, and it's abandoned. It's like nobody there, and they have this big, beautiful building. So I'm like,
doing nothing.
Open it to the homeless people.
Yes.
Why not open it to the community?
And it's like, this is a shame that they spend all this money for these buildings, and they're calling them these ideal places and this org and this thing, and there's nobody coming because you guys are lying to people.
The Nation of Islam, apparently, the leadership is fully in, and the membership appears to not understand what's really going on.
We get why Scientology is interested in the nation and infiltrating community churches.
Right.
But what's in it for the nation?
Anybody that brings someone into Scientology and gets them to pay money gets 10% of everything they pay.
You get somebody to go up to OT3, you've made a good, what, $20,000, $30,000?
Right, right.
The two groups are very, very different in many ways, but they find common ground on conspiracy theories and on money. They're also both UFO cults. According to rumor, at least, the oral tradition of the Nation of Islam's core beliefs include life on other planets and some kind of civilization or ties with extraterrestrial civilizations and groups. There are tons of conspiracy theories in Scientology, and apparently there are tons of conspiracy theories in the Nation of Islam. These two things are where they very much find common ground. For example, according to an April 2018 article in the New Republic, quote, Tony Muhammad travels the world showing a documentary on vaccines claiming they cause autism, end quote. So, anti-vax, that's 100% Scientology. There are many, many Scientologists who go in on the anti-vax conspiracy theory. Tony Muhammad delivered a lecture to NOI members titled, Why the Jews Hated Jesus and Why the Jews Hate Farrakhan, where he praised Farrakhan, expressed multiple conspiracy theories, and described Jews as a wicked, lying, and arrogant people. Muhammad claimed that in addition to controlling the entertainment business and banking, Jews control drugs, pedophilia, and pornography.
German Jews finance Hitler. International bankers finance Hitler. And poor Jews died while big Jews were at the root of what you call the Holocaust. Why don't you tell that? You and I are going to have to learn to distinguish between the righteous Jew and the satanic Jews who have infected the whole world with poison and deceit.
Scientology finds itself now in an interesting place because they have positioned themselves as an interfaith group who preaches human rights, tolerance, dignity, compassion, and understanding, and yet they're allied with a group that has as its mainline headline feature bigotry, racism, and intolerance. The rest of the world is looking at this and thinking, this is nuts. And now that you know the things I've laid out in this podcast, you can see how it's even nuttier than you already thought it was at the beginning of this. These two groups do not belong together. They are destructive cults that are just ruining people's lives, take in very, very gullible people and give them this insane, logically inconsistent, and scientifically completely nuts dogma. Tell them this is the way the world actually works, and tell them that this is how they have to act, and this is how they have to speak, and this is how they have to think in order to be good people, righteous people, and people who are going to survive into eternity forever as the holy, righteous people that they naturally are. I mean, this is the message of cults, right? So I don't know that this relationship is meant to last forever. The nation is allied itself with other groups in the past and has broken away from them. We'll see what happens with this one. I'm still convinced personally that there's some kind of financial motivation underlying all of this that none of us know about yet or even can know about because we don't have access to the information we would need. But we'll see. We'll see how this pans out. I am curious to see, as pressure mounts on these two groups, which of them is going to break away from the other first or start naysaying or decrying or denying the connection. Now that you know all of this, I hope that it helps you to promote the truth about these groups and the unholy alliance that exists.